Alright everyone, this is sort of a Vermont issues video about Tiffany Riley, who's the principal of Windsor High School in the state of Vermont. They're trying to fire her because of tone-deaf BLM posts. Now what she said is, oh yes, of course, black people's lives matter, but not only exclusively, and I don't stand with rioting, essentially. She was calling out rioters, never said anything about protesters. Pointed out that there is a racial animus involved with these groups, and this is political correct bullshit because that is true. What she stated is objectively true. The rioters and the protesters aren't the same thing, number one. BLM is no longer an activist front of any actual meaning. It's essentially a money-making organization, number two. Yes, Black Lives Matter. So do white lives, Hispanic lives, gay and straight lives, and every other permutation of humanity. What she's pointing out is, why is it not human lives matter? Which is more sensible and definitely more all-encompassing. Why, for example, is it that a person who's using a crapple device is going to lecture somebody like this or somebody like me on these issues when they're using a device that was partially assembled by 12-year-old child slaves over in China? Do their lives not matter? When they get worked into an early grave by 10-hour shifts 6 days a week for sub-minimum wage with no worker safety standards, their lives obviously don't matter to these people. It's hypocrisy. That's really what's being pointed out. Instead of recognizing the merit of what she's saying, which is entirely positive, she's not sitting there saying, well, these black people or something like that. That's what it's being cast off as. All she's doing is criticizing BLM's fixation on its sloganeering and its grifting, which is what it exists for at this point. It's been corrupted by money. Any initial grassroots movement has been pissed away. This happened to Occupy as well. It happens to all these movements. Summer of Love became the summer of let's just fucking sell heroin, and then it went away. All the hippies and the real genuine hippies went out into the hills, the completely jaded, to farm their pot and become survivalists, basically. Or they moved to Vermont and started a co-op, unfortunately. Co-op food's pretty good, but, some political issues. I fail to see the problem with anything that she's posted. The idea that it's tone deaf. Who gives a fucking shit? What tone do you expect people to strike? So in other words, the only accepted tone, this is what these craftivists are really saying. The only acceptable tone is, well, yes, Black Lives Matter, praise BLM, Antifa or anti-fascists, and the Democratic Party forever, Trump bad. That's the only tone they want to hear. They don't want to hear this individual giving her opinion. If she gave an opinion, because in one sense, I can sort of understand it, because teachers, as a pseudo-taxpayer-funded individual, they're a private individual, but the edifice they work for is funded by taxpayers. Them spouting off on political and religious and similar issues on social media, I can kind of be hip to the idea that maybe they should shut up at times, to be entirely goddamn fucking honest. You're getting taxpayer money, maybe your students connect with you on Facebook or Zoom or whatever. You really, unless you're a political science teacher, it's really not necessary. That being said, the hypocrisy, the double standard, if she had said something along the lines of, Orange Man bad, Trump is evil, he's a bigot, I hate Trump fans, or something like that, do you think that they'd be trying to fire her? At the most, she'd get a mild rebuke. Even though she would be strictly saying negative things of a political nature that could alienate even the opinions of the taxpayers funding her, or her students, and I'm not sure, I can't remember which grade she teaches, a high school principal, rather, sorry. She's an administrator in that function there, and they're trying to fire her for having this particular opinion. The opinion that she's expressing is not rare. It's not fanatic. It's certainly not hateful. If you look through what she apparently said, there's nothing there particularly that could be considered hateful. And I'm wondering, are they actually going to be capable of firing her, of removing her from this position? I would think that this would fall under, to some extent as well, protected speech. Again, there's no element of, and I know it doesn't technically exist, but we use this in common parlance, there's no element of hate speech here. She's not saying anything about a group of people other than BLM as an organizational structure. Well, rioting is illegal, so her calling that out, whether it's racially motivated or not, I can't see why that would be a problem. The idea that it would be tone deaf, who fucking cares? And by the way, can I just opine something? This is the principal of Windsor High School in Vermont, a state that is overwhelmingly white. Who exactly is she alienating by making these posts? Again, this isn't exactly international news. Who is there to actually determine it to be tone deaf other than a bunch of middle-class, white, liberal individuals who are complaining because of the political nature of this, not because of the actual tone? That's the excuse. That's not actually why they're complaining. They're being opportunists. They want this, and they probably think that this woman goes around on the weekends with a coal-rolling pickup truck with a Gadsden flag on the back with a bunch of MAGA paraphernalia. And so because of that very, very limited, smooth-brained, stereotypical way in which they see the world, which is how they see it typically, they just want her fired because they feel that she's a bad person. That's what it's devolved into, trying to put people on unemployment or on a pension as government workers go, based on their political opinions. Personally, I think politics should fall under protected speech, a protected category. No, you shouldn't be able to fire someone simply because they've got a certain political opinion if you also want to have all of these other protections for different groups. So a person can make a choice to worship a certain god. You can't fire them for that, even if it's like something totally zonked out, like, oh yes, yeah, we do animal sacrifices in our religion. Can't fire them for that. But if someone has a topical political opinion that's not even outside of the mainstream, it's perfectly okay. I find this odd because religion is also just a choice people make. You know, some of these things are, like, you can't change your race unless you're Rachel Dolezal. You can't change, well, I guess you can change your gender now, according to these same people that would have a problem with this sort of speech, so I won't even bother bringing that up. But there are certain things. You can't be transracial, according to these people, with any legitimacy. But religion's a choice, and I guess now they argue that gender is a choice, or something like that. I'm not exactly entirely sure. When they're crucifying J.K. Rowling at this point, I'm not sure where the actual guidelines lie. I'm not sure where the barrier between wrong think and good think actually is among the left at this point. And it changes so quickly, they fucking dogpile each other. Just like Razor Fist said and Rand predicted, which is, I'm going to keep returning to that, I have a feeling, because there's definitely some accelerationism on the left. I think that all of the efforts to get the right to accelerate off a cliff backfired, and actually the left took up that banner, and now they're marching towards that cliff like lemmings at full speed, while pissing and shitting while they're doing so. No, I don't find anything wrong with what this principal said. Again, link in the description, archived, of course. By the way, archive.today is not a phishing site. If your Avast is blocking that, I uninstalled Avast. I got fucking tired of it. I've got different antivirus now. But look through it yourself. Look at the article and see some of the posts she made and ask yourself whether this is really a meaningful reason to fire someone. Again, if she were saying this from a left-wing perspective, at the most based on the fact that she was giving a potentially edgy political opinion, she'd get a mild warning. They'd say, please don't do it again, remove the posts, we can't condone this because, you're a principal, so, this is out in the open. Potentially people who are constituents of the community, taxpayers, see this and get pissed. So just, basically be quieter about it. Instead, they want to fire her. How dare she criticize rioting? Yeah, from Windsor, Vermont, a place where there's a huge amount, by the way, of racial animus. No, not really. Only online. By the way, when they did their study, apparently Vermonters leave the most, and again, this term is meaningless, but toxic comments of any group of people in the U.S. on the internet. I was very proud. I like to think I contributed to that, to the cesspit of trolling that comes from my proud home state. Very proud of my fellow Vermonters. That's about all. Peace out.